The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up. Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Today, we find out what's new in New York. Giants, of course. So, we'll be talking G-Men football today. And this is via YouTube subscriber Orbit Mint 4. So, we got the Giants going today. We're going to find out what's new in New York with the Giants. And keep in mind, if you want your team or any team for that matter to be next here on the What's New In segment, simply leave a comment. Be the first, that's the key, be the first to leave a comment at the bottom of this video stating the team that you want to see and the phrase next. That needs to be in there somewhere. Next. And so that will get that particular team up on this program. So let's move on. Let's talk G-Men football and what's new in New York with the Giants. But before we can get to what's new in New York with the Giants, of course, we got to go out with the old. So we'll start with out with the old in New York. So in order to go out with the old, in with the new, yada, 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 of course, I need the assistance of not only my big board behind me, but my handy dandy pointer. I've got both. So I'm ready to talk Giants football. And so we'll start with out with the old in New York with the Giants. And everything in terms of personnel is exactly the same. Tom Coughlin is still the head coach. You've still got offensive coordinator Kevin Gilbride. You still got defensive coordinator Perry Fuel. And so everything is the same at the top with the Giants. And normally with stable franchises, that's how it occurs. But there are some shakeups on the roster. And so let's get to them. We start at the top with running back Ahmad Bradshaw. And to me, he was the emotional leader of this football team. Anytime you would see things starting to go in the wrong direction, this guy would get fired up. He'd want the football. He'd take the challenge of wanting to step to the forefront and get everyone else engaged in what was going on in the football game. They are going to miss that from Ahmad Bradshaw. He is a guy that is very fiery. And there were a couple of times you've seen him get fired up, and he'd get Tom Coughlin fired up. And Tom Coughlin would yell at him, and he'd yell back at Tom Coughlin, and it would galvanize the team, I thought. And he is definitely someone that was huge in not only the Super Bowl win in 2011, but he was also big in their run to the Super Bowl in 2007 as well. And so here's a two-time Super Bowl champion in Ahmad Bradshaw, a guy that I thought was a catalyst for those Super Bowls. And they're definitely going to miss him. They have a young guy in place in David Wilson that they feel like they're passing the torch off to. And so Ahmad Bradshaw, with his chronic foot problems, is no longer in New York. And I think he can still play football. He's a relatively young back. I think he's only 27 or 28 years old. So he's got more football in him. Those foot problems, they kind of worry me a little bit. This is a guy that rarely practiced in New York because of the chronic foot problems, but always suited up on game day and gave it maximum effort each and every single week. And so the Giants are going to miss Ahmad Bradshaw. They are maybe not in production because I don't know what David Wilson is going to bring to the table, but I think David Wilson has the potential to pick up where Ahmad Bradshaw left off in the production department. But I'm talking about from an emotional standpoint. This was the guy that got fired up, and I think he fired the teammates up and the troops as well. And so from that standpoint, I think Ahmad Bradshaw is definitely going to be missed on this football team. You look at wide receiver Dominic Hickson. He's a guy that I really liked in New York. He was versatile. He's a guy that could return punts, kickoffs. It was a receiver that I thought was starting to blossom, but he was always injured. Dominic Hickson could never stay healthy. Just when you thought, man, this guy might turn the corner, he'd get injured. And it wasn't your standard run-of-the-mill injury like a turf toe or a sprained ankle. This guy tears ACLs and things of that nature. And so he'd be gone for an extended period of time. And Dominic Hickson is a guy that when he's healthy, he's very effective. He can do some things to help you in the passing game. He can do some things on special teams. He can help your football team. But the problem is with Dominic Hickson is he just isn't healthy enough. And so I think his time ran out in New York because they couldn't wait for Dominic Hickson to get healthy or hope that he would stay healthy. You can't cross your fingers and hope this guy's going to stay healthy. They had to go and draft other guys to fill that void that was always left because Dominic Hickson continued to get hurt. So he's out. He's now in Carolina. Ahmad Bradshaw is now in Indy. So these guys have found work elsewhere, but they're no longer in New York. Look at tight end Martellus Bennett. Here's a guy that you shined up. And Martellus Bennett should be ashamed of himself. You know why? Because he used the Giants. He used them. He came over from Dallas, and nobody wanted Martellus Bennett. This guy was a bum. He stunk in Dallas. He couldn't get right. He had two left feet. He couldn't catch the football. He was uncoordinated, and all he used to talk about was wanting to rap. And so nobody cared about Martellus Bennett. This was a guy that had enormous potential, but he just simply didn't get it at the tight end position. And I thought he was going to flame out of the league. And the Giants said, hey, we've seen this guy twice a year. We know he has potential. We know if we get our hands on him, we can get the best out of Martellus Bennett. He goes to New York. They shine him up. Shine him up. Make him look real good, real nice. And they're thinking, hey, this guy's going to come back to us, and we're going to make beautiful music for years to come. Not so fast. Martellus Bennett had other ideas in mind. Hey, look, it's all about the dollar, okay? Cash rules everything around me. Cream get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. And Martellus Bennett went chasing after the cream. And he went to Chicago, and he didn't hesitate. And if you are the Giants, you got to feel some type of way about that because without you guys making him look good in 2012, this opportunity for him to get paid doesn't exist. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a business for everyone involved. Giants, players, Martellus Bennett, everyone involved, it's a business. And he made the best business decision for Martellus Bennett. He's no longer in New York with the Giants. He's now a Chicago Bear. You look at offensive tackle, Sean Locklear. Funky, yuck. You had to start this guy about 10 or 12 or 15 games last year. Pure funk on a whole new level. I don't like Sean Locklear if you can't tell already, but you got to do what you got to do in this league. And he was the best you had to offer at right tackle, at left tackle. But you don't want to put Sean Locklear in the game if you don't have to. You just don't. And he was at right tackle for you last year. And look, to put it this way, you're lucky Eli Manning was not decapitated because Sean Locklear is average at best. And he's not a young man. He's been in the league. He's been around the block a few times. And so he can't keep up with the athletic marvels at defensive end. Anybody that has an ounce of athleticism can run circles around Sean Locklear. Don't like him. I don't like him in a backup capacity, let alone a starting one. And you had to start this guy last year. I think you've had enough because this guy went from starting to not on the roster in 2013. And so you feel the same way I do, I guess, about Sean Locklear's ability to get it done. And he's no longer on this roster. Look at kicker Lawrence Tynes. I didn't think Lawrence Tynes was that bad in 2012. He's been solid for you. He's kicked some big kicks in the past for the Giants. Remember that kick in the postseason versus the Green Bay Packers? Not the most ideal situation. Long field goal. He drills it, sends you to the Super Bowl to upset the undefeated, big, bad New England Patriots. That was Lawrence Tynes. And so he's made some big kicks for you over the years. But last year, he missed some kicks. Some of them very timely. And in this league, it's what have you done for me lately? It's Janet Jackson. What have you done for me lately? Doom, 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 doom. Ooh, yeah. And you ask Lawrence Tynes, and he doesn't have an answer for you. He doesn't know what he's done for you lately. The Giants don't know what he's done for them lately. And so Lawrence Tynes is looking for work. Didn't have to look far. He's in Tampa Bay right now, but he's no longer in New York, and that's what matters. Look at safety Kenny Phillips. Just like Dominic Hickson, here's a guy that when he's playing, he makes a huge difference. Problem is, Kenny Phillips isn't playing enough. And so, if you're the Giants, you wanted Kenny Phillips back because you know what this guy brings to the table when healthy. And you feel like, hey, we can keep this guy healthy. He'll be fine. He's a good football player. All of those things are true, except for keeping this guy healthy. I just don't know if Kenny Phillips can stay healthy consistently. You might get a season where Kenny plays 14 or 15 games, but you know that following season, you're getting 6 or 7 games out of Kenny. And so he's no longer with the Giants. He's sleeping with the enemy. Literally, he's in Philadelphia. And if you're a Giants fan, that's one of the worst things you could do. That's like blasphemy. He's in the division, and you'll see Kenny Phillips twice a year. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes in the National Football League. So you look at linebacker Chase Blackburn. For me, I don't understand this. The Giants, for some reason, and I can't put my finger on it, seem to ignore the fact that they really need help at the linebacker position. They keep trying to put a Band-Aid on something that needs surgery. Okay? The Giants have a ruptured patella tendon. It needs to be surgically repaired. They feel they can put an ace band on it and it'll just go away. No, you can't do that. And the linebacker position for me in New York is just one of, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? What are you doing? I just want to know, what are you doing? Because we'll get to in with the new and what they're doing at the linebacker position. But Chase Blackburn was the best thing you had smoking at the linebacker position. And you just let him walk away as if you had guys waiting in the wings to take over. That's not the case. And so Chase Blackburn had his best season of his career in 2012. I'm talking about 4 forced fumbles, 3 sacks, a pick, almost 100 tackles. I mean, the guy was everywhere for you. And you just let him walk away. I'm speechless. Okay, I'm not speechless, but I'm baffled. I don't understand. So Chase Blackburn now is in Carolina, which is a really good fit for him, but this guy was the Super Bowl hero in 2011. He's been solid for you his whole entire career in New York. I just don't understand. I don't understand. Defensive tackle, Chris Canty. I really understand this one perfectly clear. Crystal clear. Chris Canty is solid. He's very, very versatile. You can play him at defensive tackle. He's a big guy, 6'7", 320 pounds or so. You can play him at defensive end if you like. But to me, Chris Canty is best at the 5 technique in a 3-4 defense. And last time I checked, the Giants play a 4-3 defense. And so I totally get it. Chris Canty is a guy that needs to be in a 3-4 defense. And I don't think he really fits what you're trying to do in New York in a 4-3 defense. Sure, he can play inside, but I think he's more of a 5 technique in a 3-4 defense. And I think that's what he's going to do in Baltimore, which is where he is now. And I think he'll excel at that. He did it in Dallas, and he was solid for the Cowboys. He'll do it in Baltimore and be solid for the Ravens. So I understand this one. Makes a lot of sense to me. Defensive tackle Rocky Bernard. Solid, has been with the Giants for about 4 or 5 seasons. Played really well. He's long in the tooth. You're looking to replace him. End of discussion. Really simple. Rocky Bernard isn't as productive as he once was. Time to move on. Look at defensive end O.C. Umenyiora. Man, was the writing on the wall for this one or what? it seems like he's been going back and forth with management for the Giants for the longest time. And the man just wanted to be paid. And he took the stance of, if I were underperforming, you would cut me. I'm overperforming my contract, yet you won't pay me more money. He didn't understand that dynamic and how that works. And he has a point. In the NFL, management is eager to get rid of guys who are being paid too much money and aren't living up to their contract. Yet, when you outperform your contract, like Maurice Jones-Drew, for example, did in Jacksonville, and is looking for more money, a lot of times you're told to shut up and play because you're under contract. How fair is it? I don't know. Because, yeah, you did sign that piece of paper that guaranteed you that money at that time. But now you're playing even better and you feel like you are worth more to the franchise. Maybe you should be compensated for your play on the field. In the case of O.C. Umenyiora and the Giants, there was never that understanding between the two. There was never the give and take that is supposed to exist between player and franchise. There was never that understanding that, hey, we both need to compromise here. Let's meet somewhere in the middle. It was either my way or the highway. And after about 7 years in New York, it was the highway for O.C. Umenyiora. So he's now in Atlanta. He's looking to try to help them get over the hump. And he's no longer a part of the New York Giants football team. So that's out with the old in New York. A lot of really good players there. A lot of guys that you consider core Giants. A guy like Ahmad Bradshaw. A guy like Kenny Phillips. Chase Blackburn. O.C. Umenyiora. All of these guys, they've only known one team in their career. So going to be a little strange seeing them in a different uniform. But when you're a good football team like the Giants normally are, you'll do just fine replacing them with other guys that you either already have on the roster or that you have just brought in free agency or via the draft. The Giants will be fine because they're a good organization. Jerry Reese runs this thing the right way. The Giants will be absolutely fine. So we move on to end with the New York Giants. So now we're talking about all of the new stuff in New York. We start with wide receiver Louis Murphy. Good old Ironhead. Ironhead is a solid receiver. Can stretch the field a little bit. But he's not a guy that you would consider a consistent threat at the wide receiver position. He's a guy that could hit you for a 47-yard catch, but in the same breath, he's a guy that will drop the football. He's a guy that will make one of the most beautiful catches you've ever seen, but he didn't get 2 feet in bounds. That's Louis Murphy in a nutshell. You take the good with the bad. You've got a solid guy that's athletic. He's big. He can help the Giants. I think he's a solid replacement for a guy like Dominic Hickson. He comes in. He's a veteran. He understands what it takes to play the receiver position in this league. Ironhead will fit right in New York. You look at tight end Brandon Myers. You lose Martellus Bennett, and you march right out, and you get the next best thing. Now, is Brandon Myers anywhere near as athletic as Martellus Bennett? No. Is Brandon Myers as physically imposing as Martellus Bennett? No. But what Brandon Myers will do that Martellus Bennett does not do as well is catch the football. And Brandon Myers last year for the Oakland Raiders was a machine catching the football. It didn't matter what the down and distance was. The Raiders just threw the football to Brandon Myers. 3rd and 7, check it down to Brandon Myers. 2nd and 9, throw it to Brandon Myers. 1st and 10, hell, throw it to Brandon Myers. And they did it over and over and over again. Nobody was talking about Brandon Myers. Well, You hit the free agent market. The Giants filled a void. They knew they had to fill it because Martellus Bennett had left for greener pastures in Chicago. They go and get Brandon Myers, a guy who's going to come in and play that tight end position fairly well for the Giants. I think he'll fit in nicely. And Eli Manning will get the football to Brandon Myers, who will be his new security blanket. You look at kicker Josh Brown. He's one of those guys that I can never understand why he doesn't stay employed in the National Football League. Josh Brown is a very consistent kicker. I've never had a problem with Josh Brown. Nowhere at any point. Whether he was in Seattle, Cincinnati, St. Louis, I've never had a problem with Josh Brown. Every time I see the man, he's nailing a 53-yard field goal with ease. So when he doesn't have a job, I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong with this picture? So here Josh Brown is again, fighting for a job. I see him winning this job in New York because I think that he's good enough. And I don't understand why the rest of the league fails to realize that. I mean, Josh Brown makes field goals. It's what he does. He's a fiery guy. I like Josh Brown. I just don't understand why he can't stay employed. There must be something there that I'm missing. Whatever the case may be, I think he's going to be the kicker for the Giants in the 2013 season. And here's the reason why. Kicker David Buehler is who he will be in competition with. And here's a guy that came from Dallas. He did not kick in 2012. Last time I saw David Buehler, he was just kicking footballs in Dallas. And here's how Jerry Jones found this guy. And this is how he explained it to a guy like Joe DeCamillis, the special teams coach or former special teams coach in Dallas. Jerry Jones probably went up to him and said, hey, I got this guy that can kick it a mile. This guy can kick it. Can he kick it straight? Now, I got a guy that can kick it a mile now. Joe, you got to put him in there. You got to let him kick. Jerry, can he kick it straight? This guy can kick it a mile. And that's how I feel about David Buehler. This guy's got a leg on him. He can kick it. He just can't kick it straight. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? If you're a field goal kicker and you can kick it a ton, but you can't kick it through the uprights, what good are you to me? And so I just don't see David Buehler beating out Josh Brown, who is the consummate professional who gets it done. Josh Brown is going to win that competition. No doubt about it in my mind. Look at safety Ryan Mundy. Back up in Pittsburgh, a guy that was thrust into the action in 2012 with all of the injuries to Troy Polamalu and to Ryan Clark. He played fairly well. Thought that he stepped into that role at safety and did an admirable job filling in. He is no Troy Polamalu. He is no Ryan Clark. But he did a really good job of just holding down the fort in Pittsburgh. And the Giants took notice. He's now a New York Giant, and he's going to help you. The Giants love to employ different defenses, some that feature three safety looks. So you'll get three safeties on the field at the same time, and a guy like Ryan Mundy will slide right on in there and help you on the defensive side of the football. He's also going to help you on special teams. I like this signing of safety Ryan Mundy from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at cornerback Aaron Ross. This guy is a joke. What he did to the Jacksonville Jaguars, criminal. Classic example of the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Now look, money talks, everything else walks. And the Jacksonville Jaguars threw stupid money at Aaron Ross. They made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. Problem is, he's a thief. He stole their money. He didn't work for it. You know what this guy had the nerve to say? Pure ignorance, too. There's nothing worse than having someone steal something from you, then turn around and laugh and throw it back in your face. How ignorant is that? This guy went to Jacksonville, stole their money, and then came back to New York and said, that was a paid vacation. The nerve of this peasant. Unreal. And that's essentially what it was. He went to Jacksonville, played horrendously, took their money, and came back to New York. Unreal. So he's back home. He did a Dorothy. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And he opened his eyes and he was back in New York. Who knew? It was that simple. You go sign a contract, you stink it up, you take their money, and they send you back to the place you wanted to be all along. Who knew? It was that simple. But that's what Aaron Ross did, and he's back in New York now. Unbelievable. Linebacker Aaron Curry. This is what I'm talking about. And we're about to run down a slew of linebackers that the Giants have acquired in free agency that I think makes absolutely no sense. Let's start with Aaron Curry. Here's a guy drafted, I want to say in the top 10, I think 7th overall by the Seattle Seahawks. Out of Wake Forest. They think that this guy has the ability to come in and do everything. It was the direct opposite. He came in and he did absolutely nothing. He gets injured. He's not playing up to the potential, and he's not playing up to the draft pick. They get rid of him. They trade him to Oakland. Oh, fresh start, new lease on life for Aaron Curry. He goes to Oakland, gets injured. He's not playing well. The Raiders get rid of him. Now he ends up in New York. What do you think is going to happen in New York? You didn't hear this from me. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. This smells like Keith Rivers to me. Doesn't it? Doesn't it smell like Keith Rivers to you? A guy that was drafted relatively high by the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals realized quickly, this guy isn't what we thought he was out of USC. He's big, he's physical, he's got all the tools in the bag. He just doesn't know how to use any of them. Same thing with Aaron Curry, except he's always hurt. And to a certain extent, so is Keith Rivers. Every time I see him, he's got a cast on his hand. He's broken a wrist or a thumb or something. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Giants are reaching here. They're looking for something. And I don't think they're going to like what they find in Aaron Curry, but I'm not going to be the one to tell them. I won't be the bearer of bad news. I'll let them find out on their own. You look at linebacker Dan Connor. Why do the Giants think that this guy is the answer at the linebacker position? Why? Couldn't you have just re-signed Chase Blackburn instead? Wouldn't that have made more sense? At least it did to me. Maybe I'm missing something. And if that isn't enough that Dan Connor is ordinary, he was ordinary in Carolina, he was ordinary in Dallas, now he's going to be ordinary in New York. If that wasn't bad enough, he's already been arrested for trying to take a knife through an airport. Who needs that kind of negative pub? I don't know. But add him to the list of stuff the Giants have at linebacker that isn't that good. You look at linebacker Kyle Bosworth. Got him from the Jacksonville Jaguars. What does he do for you? He plays special teams. Guess what the Giants need? Starting linebackers. Not special team linebackers. Starting linebackers. Starting caliber linebackers. It's not Kyle Bosworth. So you get Curry, who's injury prone and not living up to his potential. You get Dan Connor, who has been as ordinary can get in the National Football League. And you get Kyle Bosworth, a career special teams player out of Jacksonville. What do these guys do for you at the linebacker position? My question is it me or are the Giants ignoring the elephant in the room? These Band-Aids that you have here, these Band-Aids that you see here, they don't fix the Giants. those ailments that they have at the linebacker position, these won't fix them. That's just my personal opinion. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Aaron Curry's new lease on life is what he needed. Maybe Dan Connor comes in and lights it up. Maybe he's the new Chase Blackburn. Maybe Kyle Bosworth just needed an opportunity to start. Maybe. I doubt it. But maybe. Who knows? Defensive tackle Mike Patterson. He was really solid for a long time in Philadelphia. And then the injuries and the medical conditions started to come, and he wasn't the same guy. And much like Kenny Phillips, he jumped ship from one NFC East team to another. Coming from Philadelphia, now with the New York Giants. Giants must feel that he still has some good football left in him. We'll see what Mike Patterson brings to the table, because when he's playing effective football, he's a guy that adds good value to your football team. We'll see if he still has anything left in the tank to help this Giants defensive line. So you go from there to the draft of the New York Giants. And if you're looking for an extensive breakdown of the draft of the Giants and all these players, go to the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up that I have done for every team in the National Football League, including the Giants. I won't be breaking these players down here. I'll just be running down the list of draftees by the Giants. Offensive tackle Justin Pugh in the first round. Defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins in the second round. Defensive end Demontre Moore in the third round. Quarterback Ryan Nassib in the fourth round. Safety Cooper Taylor in the fifth round. Guard Eric Herman in the sixth round. And rounding out the draft in the seventh round is running back Michael Cox. So now we go from guys who have a legitimate shot, if not locks, to make this roster and draftees, to the undrafted free agent rookies who are going to try to make this roster. You start with tight end Chase Clement out of LSU. Defensive back Junior Mortal out of Florida International. Defensive back Charles James out of Charleston Southern. Defensive back Alonzo Tweedy out of Virginia Tech. And last but not least, linebacker Etienne Sabino out of Ohio State. I think Etienne Sabino has a legitimate shot at making this roster just because of what I just spoke to with the Giants and their lack of depth and talent at the linebacker position. I think this guy has the talent to not only make this roster, but potentially start for the Giants in either 2013 or down the road. I mean, they need help at the linebacker position. And I think it's a position of need for the Giants, and they need to address it right away. And we'll see if these guys that they have brought in, or maybe a guy like Sabino, can come in and help them at the linebacker position. So we go from in with the new to any philosophical changes in New York. So now we're talking philosophical changes with the G-men. And frankly, there are none. You're getting the same Giants you've gotten for the last 6 or 7 seasons under Tom Coughlin. Kevin Gilbride, still your offensive coordinator, still going strong as the offensive coordinator in New York. Same with the defensive side of football. Perry Fewell has these guys playing solid football. At times, they do have a drop-off, but all in all, the Giants are solid on the defensive side of the football. They're not the same group that we once knew and loved that got pressure on the quarterback, that at any given moment could put 4 guys on the field at the defensive line positions and just get pressure on the quarterback. At one point, Justin Tuck, O.C. Umenyiora, Michael Strahan, these guys were all on the field at the same time, and it was hard to block everyone. You slide in a guy like Barry Cofield there too, and it was just hard to block those guys. I think Linval Joseph is really solid at defensive tackle. I actually really like Linval Joseph. And I think that the Giants have a lot of guys that are solid, but they're missing those difference makers. Jason Pierre-Paul goes from 16 sacks in one season, and he came back crashing to earth in 2012. He, at times, was non-existent rushing the passer. You look at Justin Tuck. He had an off year by his standards. He just at times was invisible. And so these guys have to come and step back to the forefront if the Giants are going to take that next step back to the top of the NFC East. They got to get pressure on the quarterback because this team isn't the same on defense without getting pressure on the quarterback. And in that secondary, it's been a mixed review. It's been a mixed bag back there. You got a lot out of Stevie Brown last year. I mean, this guy was an interception machine back there. But Corey Webster guessed a lot, and he guessed wrong a lot last year. And I love Corey Webster. I think he's a really good corner in this league. But he guessed an awful lot in 2012. And there was a lot of times I saw 23 chasing down receivers from behind, or trying to at least, because he was beaten on the play. You look across from him, and he just didn't have any help. And the Giants just want Terrell Thomas back so bad. They really do. I mean, this is it. This is the last stand for Terrell Thomas. If you tear your ACL again, you're done. This is it. There isn't going to be a feel-good Thomas Davis story after this one. If he tears it again, he's no longer a New York Giant. You can't keep waiting on this guy to come back only to have your heart broken every single offseason. This has to be the year that Terrell Thomas stays healthy, comes back, and is the guy that the Giants gave that contract to before the injuries. So if you're a Giants fan, you're hoping, you're keeping your fingers crossed that Terrell Thomas can come back, be healthy, and be the guy that he was before the injuries, because he was on the cusp of becoming one of the better corners in the league. This guy was a playmaker. He was physical. He's big. He had all the intangibles you look for in a guy that's becoming a star at the cornerback position. And then the injuries just took effect. You're hoping that he can come back and bounce back from those injuries. But on the defensive side of the football, the key for the Giants is get to the quarterback. You got to get to the passer. You got to force turnovers, and the way to do that for the Giants is getting to the quarterback. Offensively, it's Eli Manning. It's Eli Manning and that passing attack. You got Cruz back in the fold. Hakeem Nicks will be up next. You'll find a way to do a deal with him as well. You got Ruben Randall on the up and up. You're getting a lot of guys that you feel like can help you at the receiver position. And so I feel like you're fine there. You add Louis Murphy to the mix. You bring back Ramses Barden. You're fine at receiver. Where I think you really have question marks is at running back. Is your new guy in place, David Wilson, the man at the running back position? Can you give David Wilson the football 22 times in week 2 and turn around and give it to him 27 times in week 3? Is he that guy? We'll see. He's got speed to burn. We know that. But can he take the pounding? Can he hold on to the football? Is he consistent? We'll find out. You look at the offensive line. Got to protect Eli Manning. Eli Manning is of no use to you on his back. So you draft Justin Pugh. You re-sign Will Beatty. Is this offensive line going to be a cohesive unit? The questions aren't scheme and philosophy. It's players for the Giants, because everything is the same. You looked at the board. There were only 5 undrafted free agent rookies. This is a veteran-laden team. They're looking to win now. This isn't a team looking 5 years down the road. They're trying to win right now. This is a veteran bunch that wants to win football games now. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. This is a veteran group with a veteran head coach that is looking to win football games now. And so guys have to step in and get it done now. And so be very intriguing to see how the Giants bounce back in 2013. They're always a good football team. And as a Redskins fan, the Giants scare me the most in this division. I'm not afraid of the Cowboys. I don't mind going into Dallas Stadium and smacking them around like we did Thanksgiving last year. I don't mind going into the Link and beating the Eagles like we did last year. But the one place that I can't go and get a win, I can't go into New York or New Jersey. I'll never understand that. Into the Meadowlands or whatever it's called now and get a win. I just can't seem to beat the Giants in New York. It's always been a struggle for us. And the Giants are always the team that stands in our way of doing anything in this division. And one of the most gratifying wins a season ago was the win on Monday Night Football versus the Giants. It was hard fought. It was everything you expected it to be because the Giants are a good football team. And I expect the Giants to be a good football team again in 2013. A lot of people have written the Giants off. Some people even have them finishing last in this division. I don't see it. I don't understand it. The Giants are a good football team. And frankly, that's what's new in New York with the G-Men.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.